Donald Trump's threatening to bomb Iran, while also claiming Iran's leaders are seeking to negotiate. Now, the guy's a pathological liar, the bullshitter in chief. It's always difficult to know what's real, what isn't. But given his violent global rampage, including attacking Venezuela, the fact he's already attacked Iran, we should take it seriously. Let's just have a listen.
Something willingness from Iran to engage diplomatically with you, or perhaps negotiate on their nuclear program.
With Iran?
Yeah, do you think they want to engage diplomatically with you?
They do. They called.
They called you? Is it still
yesterday.
An option? Is it still an option?
Iran called to negotiate.
Yesterday.
The leaders of Iran called. They want to negotiate. I think they're tired of being beat up by the United States.
Are you sharing any details on that call?
Iran wants to negotiate. Yes.
Negotiate what?
We may meet with them. I mean, a meeting is being set up, but we may have to act because of what's happening before the meeting.
Right.
But a meeting is being set up. Iran called. They want to negotiate.
I'll talk about the protests and the violent repression against them shortly, but according to media outlet Axios, Trump is contemplating several options in terms of intervention in Iran. A US official says all options are on the table for President Trump, but no decision has been made. That comes after Trump, of course, threatened to bomb the country. Axios quotes another US official saying the discussions had included military strikes, but most of the options presented to the president at this stage are not kinetic. Slightly weird turn of phrase. It also concluded several Israeli officials did not believe the regime was in danger of immediate collapse. Now, just on Trump and military intervention, imagine how terminally naive you'd have to be to believe that Donald Trump has the best interests of Iranians at heart. US imperialism, before Trump, dressed itself up, didn't it? Democracy, freedom, human rights. You see, this guy doesn't even pretend. He's a far-right extremist, tried to overthrow democracy in his own country. He speaks nakedly, blatantly about stealing the resources of others. Now, let's listen to Donald Trump at the age of 34, back in 1980, after the Iranian Revolution.
You're advocating that we should have gone in there with troops, et cetera, and brought our boys out.
I absolutely feel that, yes. I don't think there's any question, and there's no question in my mind. I think right now would be an oil-rich nation, and I believe that we should have done it, and I'm very disappointed that we didn't do it, and I don't think anybody would have held us in abeyance. I don't think anybody would have been angry with us, and we had every right to do it at the time. I think we've lost the opportunity.
So he said back then, if we had attacked Iran, we would have become an oil-rich country by now. Well, there is one consistency throughout Donald Trump's life, a fixation with power and money over all else. Now, the US, of course, Trump or no Trump, does not have democracy and human rights in the Middle East at its heart in terms of what it believes in. It arms and backs murderous dictatorships like Saudi Arabia, which oppresses its own people, of course, has committed hideous atrocities in Yemen. And of course, the West installed the Shah of Iran after overthrowing the democratically elected Mossadegh back in 1953. And the Shah of Iran ran a brutal regime. The West does not care about democracy and human rights. It cares about what it sees as its own strategic interests. Now, the point about the West and its links with, well, not just links, I mean, the fact it's up to its neck implicated in the murderous abuses of basic human rights in the Middle East was raised on Good Morning Britain, a discussion between Kwasi Kwarteng, who's the former Conservative Chancellor of the Exchequer under Liz Truss, crashed the economy, you might remember that, and the journalist Kevin Maguire.
Went there before I became an MP, and I was struck by the fact that the people were extremely friendly, very, very well-educated, very curious about the world. I mean, it's not like how one would imagine. But of course, the regime is the opposite.
They're very aware of their history, and they recall in 1953 when the UK and the US organised a coup and toppled the democratically elected prime minister and brought in the Shahs, who are very autocratic.
Well, the Shah was there before, but you're quite right.
They restored the Shahs.
There's a history of the West that are very sceptical about. If you go to Tehran, the biggest building is probably the British Embassy. The American Embassy's been gutted and abandoned, but it's a huge, huge compound. And they see Britain and America as often as bad actors in world affairs.
We have no ethical foreign policy. I hope democracy wins in Iran. We back vile authoritarian regimes in Saudi Arabia or Bahrain.
No, we do. You don't know what you're talking about.
Yes, God, don't be patronising.
No.
Just because you went to Eton, you don't have to be a prat about it.
No.
You don't have to be a prat about it.
You can be rude about countries.
No, you're rude.
I don't think you should do that. I don't think you should do that.
Well, of course. So what?
No.
Blossoming great democracy, Saudi Arabia.
We've got to deal with countries as
Bahrain.
Oof, Kevin gets angry there, rightly so. I mean, honestly, I have to say the arrogance of people who have backed foreign policy calamity after foreign policy calamity, saying that other people don't know what they're talking about. You see, those of us who opposed Western intervention in these, whether it be Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, we could go on. You see, we were the ones who were proven catastrophically correct, over and over again, in fact, in the worst possible way. And yet, they still behave as though they're the statesmen, the people who know what they're talking about, the grown-ups in the room, and we're just malign children, dangerous extremists. Now, if we look at the national security strategy of Donald Trump, it's very open about the abandonment of the pretense of democracy. It says that, the position of the Trump administration will require dropping America's misguided experiment with hectoring these nations in the Middle East, especially the Gulf monarchies, into abandoning their traditions and historic forms of government. We seek good relations and peaceful commercial relations with the nations of the world without imposing on them democratic or other social change that differs widely from their traditions and histories. We recognize and affirm that there is nothing inconsistent or hypocritical in acting according to such a realistic assessment or in maintaining good relations with countries whose governing systems and societies differ from ours, even as we push like-minded friends to uphold our shared norms, furthering our interests as we do so. They don't care about democracy or human rights. They never have, but they don't even pretend anymore. Now, I mean, we don't know the wider implications of an attack. We know that, for example, Iran's parliamentary speaker warned that Iran would attack shipping lanes in the Middle East, as well as potentially Israel, so a wider conflict. I think it's really important that we listen to Iranian dissidents like Jafar Panahi, who is an Iranian film director, celebrated film director, who's been arrested many times by the Iranian regime. He says, until people have the will to change something from within, nothing will be able to make that change. It has to be by the will of the people from within, that is, opposing a proposed foreign attack on Iran. Now, protests in Iran are organic and they have mass support of millions of people who despise the regime. They're not suddenly created by outside external intervention. It's really important to make that point. It is, of course, also true that outside powers are trying to manipulate the situation in their interests. You don't need to be a conspiracist. You just have to listen to what they say. The former United States Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, served under Trump, said Happy New Year to every Iranian in the streets, also to every Mossad agent walking beside them. He's talking about, of course, the Israeli secret services there, Mossad. Israeli Heritage Minister Amitai Elahu has revealed that Israeli agents are currently active in Iran. He was interviewed on Israel's army radio, and he said that activities are ongoing. He said, when we struck Iran last year, we were on their territory and knew how to prepare the ground for the attack. I can assure you that our people are working there right now. So, Israel has no interest, zero interest in a free, democratic, stable Iran. I mean, what it wants is chaos. And we can see that's what it's promoting across the Middle East. It wants regimes that are weak. It wants weak central authorities and fragmentation, because that's how it believes it will indefinitely maintain its relative strength. Now, Reza Pahlavi, who is the son of the deposed Shah, the former dictator of Iran, who was installed, of course, by the West, his father, he was overthrown because his regime was despised. Well, the people who he's linked to are far right. I mean, Reza Pahlavi will sometimes talk about democracy, a free democracy and all the rest of it, but also flirts the idea of restoring the monarchy. And we know what the Shah of Iran, he was supposed to be a constitutional monarch and just disregarded all of that in favor of running a brutal, murderous dictatorship. you know, I mean, we also saw during the Iranian Revolution how Khomeini was presented to be this kind of unifying figure who would be consensual and all the rest of it. Obviously, that didn't happen. Now, listen to the British-Iranian academic, Maziar Ghaemi, on Sky News.
It seems a lot of the protesters want that radical change to be a return to the past, a return to life under the Shah, which of course happened up until 1979, because they are using the name Reza Pahlavi, the Shah's son, who was in the US when his father fell, has been there ever since. I mean, could feasibly we see a return to those days, a return to the Shah and Reza Pahlavi returning to Iran?
I think it's completely unfeasible. I mean, when we say that there is a call for the return of the Shah in Iran, this is again quite brought by an echo chamber of social media in which monarchies tend to be very strong. And part of it is because they are supported by major Western powers in this demand. On the ground, I would see this as highly unlikely. The Iranian population have a variety of opinions about the future of Iran, and the people taking the streets come from very different social, economic, cultural groups, and they include, leftists, right-wingers, religious moderates who do not agree with the Islamic Republic, as well as people who do not hold very strong political opinions, but they can't really cope with the economic situation. So the return of the Shah is something that is picked up mostly by the virtual online sphere, I would say.
Now, I think it's interesting how Iran is being weaponized, like the suffering of the people of Iran, to launch attacks on those who stood in solidarity with the Palestinian people against genocide. Now, the US political scientist Ian Bremmer says US college activists would gain a little credibility if they were demonstrating against the brutal repression in Iran. Now, the argument there is, well, they protested about Palestine. Well, and they're protesting about Iran. Ian, do you think that the United States is arming and supporting Iran? Do you think the American media is loudly cheering on and legitimizing the Iranian regime and its crackdown on the people of Iran and whitewashing and denying the atrocities that are taking place? Is that what you think is happening? Because that was what was happening with Palestine. They were protesting about the fact that their country was arming a genocide, supporting a genocide, and that their media was also complicit in it. Therefore, they had a responsibility to speak out. What is the equivalent here? What would they be arguing for? They would just be echoing a consensus position that exists within the United States, which is that the regime is brutally repressing protesters who are organizing because they want freedom. I mean, it's just an absurd, outrageous, bad faith attack. More widely, what's happening here is supporters of Israel's genocide are using the suffering of the people of Iran to try and settle scores. You see, they know, those supporters of Israel's genocide, that they have been morally disgraced. They know that Western public opinion regards them as morally disgraced. They know that they'd lost Western public opinion, which became overwhelmingly opposed to the heinous atrocities being committed by the Israeli state against the Palestinian people. They know all that. And they think now that they can wash away their moral disgrace. They think this is now how the tables have turned. But the tables haven't turned because we don't support the Iranian regime's atrocities against protesters. You supported Israel's atrocities. And you can never wash that away. Nothing you will ever do in your life will ever wash that shame away. You are eternally morally disgraced. And some of us are morally consistent. We just oppose all violence against civilians. We oppose all human rights abuses. And we oppose all attempts to repress people who want to determine their own future. You can't say that without lying. But the difference is, you see, these crimes are not armed and supported by the West. And it takes courage, unfortunately, to speak out against crimes which the West is complicit in. Because that's the other point, isn't it? Because it's not a case now of those who oppose the Iranian regime are being vilified as dangerous, racist extremists in the West. They're not losing their jobs and being sacked and arrested, are they? Because that's what happened if you oppose the genocide. But that's not what happens if you speak out. There's no courage involved at all in this case. Now, J.K. Rowling has been spectacularly shot down over her outrageous moral inconsistency, her hypocrisy, her silence when it mattered. Now, she had tweeted, if you claim to support human rights yet can't bring yourself to show solidarity with those fighting for their liberty in Iran, you revealed yourself. You don't give a damn about people being oppressed and brutalized so long as it's being done by the enemies of your enemies. Now, the broadcaster, Sangeeta Maiska, who I went to Palestine with back in September, we went to the West Bank together. She said, yes, we should support the women of Iran who are deprived of universal human rights. However, your brand of selective feminism is not feminism. It's cynical posturing to cover the fact that you and others have abandoned the women and girls of Palestine and Gaza during an ongoing genocide. Their universal human rights have been trampled on for decades is a facet of privileged white feminism that you choose to highlight the plight of women of color when it won't cost you a thing by way of book deals, adulation, or status. Until you educate yourself about intersectionality, walk the talk, you're in no position to preach about revealing yourself. Amen to that. J.K. Rowling has had nothing to say about the women and girls of Palestine as they have been murdered en masse, slaughtered, as pregnant women have been mowed down by the Israeli army, as their babies have been killed, whether that be cooked alive in rubble or suffocated in hospitals deprived of energy. Women using, bits of plastic or for bits of tent as sanitary products, as period products. Being starved, not able to feed their children, being pregnant and being deprived themselves of basic nutrients. The sexual abuse and rape, which has been documented, she had nothing to say about any of that. How dare she? You see, we speak out against the oppression. I condemn what the Iranian regime is doing to the women and girls of Iran who deserve universal human rights. We do speak out. We're consistent. It's you who have revealed yourself. Now, here's the truth. Ordinary Iranians are rising up because they've been sparked by an economic catastrophe that sanctions have much to do with, and against the murderous theocratic regime which consolidated power by slaughtering leftists. We're witnessing brutal repression against the Iranian people by the Iranian state. According to the organization Human Rights Activists Iran, 544 have been killed so far, including 483 protesters, 47 security forces, 1 government official, 5 non-protesting civilians, 8 children counted separately, 10,500 have been arrested. That's likely, all of those figures, to be significant underestimates. What should we be saying on Iran if we're being politically and morally consistent? Here's 3 key points. 1, solidarity with the Iranian people, protesting against a murderous, oppressive, theocratic regime which came to power and consolidated its power by slaughtering leftists. The Iranian people, like every people on earth, have a sacred right to democracy, to freedom, and to justice. They are being slaughtered by a regime which will inevitably fall, even if that's not now, because these tyrannies can never last. They offer no future. Number 2, opposition to all Western intervention in Iran. Anyone who has lived through the 21st century and still backs those Western interventions after Iraq, after Afghanistan, after Libya is certifiably insane. Anyone who thinks Donald Trump has the best interests of the Iranian people at heart is certifiably insane. Iran's nightmare began with Western intervention. A MI6 and CIA orchestrated coup back in 1953, overthrowing the democratically elected progressive government of Mossadegh. Now, Israel wants an Iran that falls into chaos, that is fragmented and divided. It believes that's how it will maintain its relative strength in the Middle East. You can see what it's doing in Syria today. It is promoting and violently intervening in Syria. It keeps bombing and attacking Syria and pushing a fragmented Syria, balkanization, where it splits up. And Iran is an extremely diverse nation with many different ethnicities. And the danger is that being exploited. Number 3, not to replace one dictatorship with another. Reza Pahlavi is the son of the Shah. His father's regime was a murderous, repressive regime. It was overthrown for a reason. It was a tragedy where that led, but it was still overthrown with mass support for a very good reason. It was a violent, repressive regime that was, yes, backed, armed by the West. Now, Reza Pahlavi has claimed to support democracy when it suits him, but his extreme supporters, many of them on the far right, tell a disturbing story. And the danger is of one dictatorship being replaced by another, and also the threat of civil war in a country which has so much diversity in every possible way. Moral consistency means supporting a genuinely democratic and free of Iran, free of dictatorship, and free of foreign Western domination. That's what we should be arguing for. Please like and subscribe. Leave your thoughts in your comments. Help us challenge the dire coverage in the media about this and so many others. Patreon.com/OwenJones84. I'm finishing my book, The Fall of the West. I keep telling you about that. But then I will refocus on the channel. But in the meantime, speak to you in a bit.